What's up, everybody? So y'all know who I am. I go by the name of Oops, Figure Me Out. But look, I have a real special guest in the building today. And before I get into who he is, I want to give a special shout out to some sponsors. So Kairos TV, much appreciated for sponsoring me, sponsoring the show. And Timeless Sounds, you know who you are. But we've been talking about fatherhood, and the very special guest I have in the building with me today is Mr. Raphael James. How you doing, my brother?
Great, man. Honored to be here.
Man, if y'all look, I asked this brother to do an episode with me, and without hesitation, he said, hey, when, where, I'd love to do it. So I love that. So before we get into the fatherhood, I'd like to do a little recap of what we've talked about so far. So far, episode 1, we kind of talked about, just scratching the surface about fathers, what are fathers? We kind of compared what society views fathers as versus, what we view fathers as, and just getting different perspectives of that. Episode 2, we kind of dug a little deeper into the results of fatherlessness. And fatherlessness reigns heavy all across the globe. And so episode 3, we jumped in more with blended families. And that's the episode you saw. I had my brother with me. Gotcha. A special episode. I had to kind of put him in a headlock, get him on here. And then episode 4, which I'll be releasing Monday, I had a little panel with me, and we kind of talked about our different journeys, without growing up with our fathers. Episode 5, I call that the church version of fatherhood, which is really dope. I did it with my brother, Kenny Wilkins. And so this is episode 6. And to get started, I want to ask you this question. What is fatherhood to you?
Well, fatherhood to me is a very special thing. It's an opportunity to not only bring life into the world, but to mold that life, to protect that human being, and to guide that human being.
Wow.
I think God has a special mission for each and every person on the face of the earth, and I think a good father is able to enhance the foundation for that young person, male or female.
I like that word, enhance. And just a sidebar, like I think in one of the other episodes, we talked about father from the biblical perspective being Abba or Ab. And we always call God our Abba Father. And it's that word Abba was interesting to me when I did some research on it. And it means source. It also means sustainer. And it also means nourisher. And when you say enhance, we know the story about Adam when he was brought into the world, when God made him and blew in that dirt body he made. He said something like, hey, protect everything under your care, right? And be responsible for everything under your care. So that word enhance is a thing that I kind of want to go a little deeper in. What do you mean by enhance?
When I say enhance, I mean, God made you, so you're already perfect. So it's my job to enhance, to bring some of that thing out. You don't come out knowing how to do certain things. You don't come out knowing how to walk. You don't come out knowing how to talk. So as parents and as fathers, it's our job to teach you that. And once you get that, now I have to kind of teach you and show you your role as a man.
Wow.
This is how you respect your mother. This is how you respect your sisters. This is how you relate to other men and women around you, your society, your community. This is where you belong. This is where you stand. This is what you stand for. This is what you don't allow at all. And those kinds of things I feel are important to creating, especially young men. But that's what a father, I think, brings into play. How do you respect others? And then how do you protect, and how do you, as a man, protection is one thing that's built into us. And I think for good reason, too. I'd like to kind of touch on that. As a father, that is something I feel sworn and bound to do, protect my family at all
And you feel
costs.
that automatically, that's just that natural instinct.
Automatic. Well, and it was, I would say automatic, but it's automatic because my dad instilled it into me. As a man, it is your responsibility to care and provide for your family. If you're not doing that, then you're not, in my opinion, fulfilling your goal or your mission as a man.
So let me pause you right there. Sounds like what I'm hearing is there are goals or things that you could write down. Maybe this is what I want to do and go after. But then there are some unwritten things that's maybe more innate in men that you should naturally kind of do and pick up on. Tell us a little bit of how you grew up as a child. You said your dad put that in you.
You're right. And I think there may be some commonalities here. I'm a PK as well.
Hey, hold on. That's another show, bro.
Yeah. So my dad was a preacher. He became a pastor probably when I was about 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
And that was another dynamic growing up in the spotlight, so to speak.
Woo.
But outside of that, and even before that, my dad instilled in me responsibility, a sense of purpose, respect for others, and to carry yourself to have a good name. Did I listen to everything he said? Absolutely not. Did I regret not listening to it?
Sure.
Yeah. And you know, as I grew up, I kind of saw more of what he was trying to get me to do. Even those parts that I rejected, later I saw the value in them.
So, was you your only child?
No, I'm the oldest of four.
Oldest of four brothers? Or...
I've got two other brothers and one sister.
Wow. So you're the oldest. So you the first one to take all the hits that came in, and I mean that in a not only like a physical way, but like just like you venturing off to new things. Your brothers and sisters watching you.
Yeah.
Like we'll let you be the example first.
They made all the mistakes on me.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. For example, we couldn't. Very strict household. We couldn't go to the movies. They wouldn't let us go to the movies.
Wow.
They wouldn't let us go to dances. And to this day, I feel like that's why I don't have any rhythm. Because they didn't believe in dancing in the house. So by the time my youngest brother comes along, he's probably 13 years younger than I am.
Uh-huh.
By the time he comes along, he's going to sock hops. And I'm like, what? What is this? Well, we're going to drop him off at the movie. What?
But check it out. So being a PK myself, it was the same way. Like we had restrictions on us. Question: did that make you, right, being a PK, being a, your father? I don't want to say strict, but he had his standards, and you follow those. When you got out of the house, were you one of those ones that went wild, or
yeah, absolutely,
experienced a little bit of life, or did you follow everything that your father laid down, in the house, or was you already there when you left? Like, I got it.
No. I definitely had to see what I was missing out on. I definitely had to see what they were keeping me away from. So I'm like, you know what? I want to experience some of these other things. You said I couldn't go to the movies. So I go to the movies now and, they eventually loosened up. So I'm like, okay, so the movies wasn't that bad. Why were you trying to keep, so maybe this other stuff wasn't that bad. So, I would experiment and get into some other things. But I think because the thumb was on me, once I had an opportunity to have some freedom, I took advantage of it.
Let's segue. So you're now a father. How many kids?
I have 3 children.
3 children. What would you say is that one or many things that you've, because growing up you imitate to a degree, or your father and mother, your parents instill things in you. What's that one thing you took from your parents that you still to this day implement with your kids?
Talking to them. My parents spent a lot of time talking with us, having hard conversations with us. And I think we, as a family unit, get together often and sit around and have honest conversations. What's going on? What are some things you're facing? Why are you feeling this way about some things? Have real conversations about life and race and all these other things, politics. We talk about it all in an area that's safe, in an area where they can ask questions, in an area where they can volunteer response and not have to deal with, did I say something right or wrong?
Right.
So I appreciate my parents for that, and I carry that on to this day.
Wow. That's. I mean, in this world today, or this time frame, we see a lot of fatherlessness. We see a lot of kids, and I could say I can see children sometimes, and I can tell that there's no father in the house. Based off the way that they may treat something or respond to something. And with my son, I try to tell him, and I try to teach him in a way, because I learned from my father. My father as well spoke to us a whole lot. He knows how to say the same thing 10,000 different ways. And one thing I tell my son, hey, I know you're going to make mistakes. I know this is just natural. But I rather you make the mistakes while you're in the house and learn. So when you fall, you have more of a cushioned fall. And then we can talk about the decisions you made that may have caused that, or maybe something that I've said that you misinterpreted, or maybe I was wrong on something. So we could talk about it, figure out how to get back up, so what it's like to fall and to get back up,
Right.
Properly.
Let me get, because you touched on something there that I kind of want to expound on a little bit. With my son is 13 and he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. So raising him has been maybe a little different from what I expected raising a son would be. I've had to use different strategies, but still, there is no relaxing of expectations and morals and all of that. He gets it all. I just maybe have to come at it a little differently. But what I see different in my son that I admire than I saw in myself, when we talked about doing your own thing, when I would sneak around and do some things that I wasn't supposed to, I would do that, but not come clean, not,
Right.
admit it to my dad,
Yeah.
And maybe if we could have had a conversation about it, I would have been in trouble. And that's what I was trying to avoid. No,
Yeah.
I don't want to get in trouble. My son, though, he has such a sense of honesty about him. I'll teach him what the right thing to do is, and he may not do it. But if I ask him about it, he will be honest with me and say, no, I didn't. And he knows he's wrong, and maybe he gets in trouble, but that's not going to stop him from owning up to
Right.
it. I messed up, and I respect that. I respect that. Well, son, let's talk about it. And I find that when he can own up to it and we can have a conversation about it and he can understand it, we can move past it a lot more. So what I was doing, I see how what I was doing by not owning it, by hiding it, by denying it, didn't help me in the long run. Whereas if I had expressed some of the things that I was doing when I was maybe confronted with them or whatnot, I could have grown as a person a lot without having to endure some of the lessons that life brought me because I was trying to hide it, because I was
Right.
trying to live differently.
So with that, all the stuff you just said, was that one of the results that shaped you in being a father with your son at this point, or is it how did it shape your view of fatherhood more?
Say that question one more time.
So with you saying that your son, he has autism, and you said you didn't expect to raise your son that way, how has that shaped your perspective, I guess?
Man, it's been a journey because my wife and I got the news. My son was nonverbal. I mean, when he was born, he was doing all of the things that newborns do. I'd had one other child before, my oldest daughter, and he was meeting those milestones. And then around 18 months or a little sooner than that, things started to slow, whereas you would expect speech didn't come. And we became concerned, and we took him in to have him evaluated, and that's when he got the diagnosis of autism. And when we got that news, that wasn't what we wanted to hear. We didn't know really what autism was. And it's a pretty heavy blow for parents to get news that um, something is wrong or something is different about your child. All the hopes and the dreams that
That you
you've
made, yeah.
packed into this being, now here's a doctor or somebody saying that, yeah, those dreams, you may not realize them with this person, with this child. They may never be able to fulfill that promise that you've put into them. So we took, some time with that. I remember getting back home, my wife and I, and crying and talking. And I told my wife, okay, so we did that, and as far as I'm concerned, that's it. That's all the time we're going to give to grieving this diagnosis. Now we've got to roll up our sleeves and figure out how we're going to do this, how we're going to raise our child. And I'm not giving up on him. I'm not lowering my expectations of
Right.
what I think he should have. One of the biggest questions we had was, can he learn? What can he do? And the answer is different with everybody. Autism is a broad spectrum. You have people who are high functioning at one end and people who are very low functioning on another end, and you just never know. So we went into it with the faith in God and prayer that he would be okay. And it was rough, kind of trying to figure it out. And I made mistakes. I think trying to father him and raise him the way my parents had raised me, no nonsense, pick that up off of the floor.
Hmm.
If you don't pick it up off of the floor, then that's a problem.
Right.
My parents weren't, I'm going to ask you 2 or 3 times, and if you don't do it,
Yeah.
I said it one time. You heard me, right? And you didn't pick it up. Okay, that's a problem. We got to deal with that. And so I kind of went into parent mode. And what I found out over time is that he didn't respond well to that type of parenting. And I had to be broken down to the point where I look at my son as an individual, as himself, not as a little me, not as my brother and sister. He is a whole unique person who has a different way of seeing the world and responding to the world. And so yelling may have gotten me to jump and do whatever it was. It didn't feel good. And now with him, I find when you yell or punish and are extreme, it's amplified, just like a microphone. You say something into a microphone, it's amplified.
Right.
You do those kinds of behaviors towards my son, and it's amplified. And it doesn't help the situation. So I had to find out the best way to parent him. And I know it's a long answer to your question.
It brings more questions, and I didn't know that about it, but it seemed to have shaped you in your approach to fatherhood. Like I said earlier, we usually imitate our parents because that's all we know.
Right.
And you usually try to implement the same way that your parent did, but for your son, that didn't work, and you had to go back. I like what you said as far as like, and I look at it as you enhancing your family. You knew that way wasn't working, and you said, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board. Obviously your son is 13 now.
Right.
But when you heard the news from the doctor about that particular challenge, you said to your wife, hey, look, this is the last we're going to grieve about this. Let's see what we can do now to approach this situation. But I want to go back and talk about maybe, and this might be more for Black men, but like how we even got to, because you spoke kind of like about parenting styles, and most of us grew up with parents that have more authoritative style of parenting. you're going to do what I said. And if you don't do it, you're going to face repercussions, consequences.
Right.
And you pretty much started with that style, it seems like. But now you have a totally different, unique style to do it.
I do. This trial or test has developed patience in me, and God is the only one who did it. There's no other way. Not to say that I was hugely impatient, but I didn't have this level of patience. Just the other day, we were going through something, and there was something that happened that needed to be addressed with my son. And I could feel myself, instead of escalating, I felt myself de-escalating to the point where this is normal. This is where I was like, okay, son, why'd you do that? Look in the mirror. That's not you. Look at you. Is that who you want to be? And then to watch him look and decide, you know what? No, Dad. No, I'm sorry. And all of that happened in a matter of minutes. And I know it sounds kind of like a fairy tale or whatever,
Right.
But honestly, since I've been dealing with him that way instead of up here, bringing it down, he really does respond a lot better to it. And
Wow.
People would, from the outside looking in, because I was that way, I would say, man, you're letting the child run things. No, there's nothing wrong with him. And matter of fact, I said that in my youngest, when I was a teenager. Problem with these kids, they just need more discipline. OCD, OD, ADHD. There's nothing wrong with these people.
Right.
They're on all these medicines. That's what's wrong. They just need more discipline. Well, not all the time. Not all the time. Discipline isn't an answer to every problem.
Everything, right.
And sometimes you just really do have to show the love of God. And there's strength in that too, in having a child, your child, somebody you brought here, and defy what you say, and to not take it personally, and to try to get in there and figure it out and fix it. From the outside looking in, it may look like you're coddling, you're giving in, but you know what? I don't care what it looks like from the outside. This is my house. Like remember, this is my house, baby.
Right.
This is my house. And at the end of the day, I've got to do what works for my family. And right now, this is what's working for my family.
That's such an awesome response. Just as a man, as a father, hey, this works for my family. My family, we're in agreement on how we're going to do our house. I struggle with the same thing with my son. Sometimes I think, you just need more discipline. And, I'm approaching things right here, when if I just approach it right here, just with a snap of a finger, I can communicate better with him. He can receive what I'm saying much better, So, I mean, that's, wow.
And I'll tell you one other thing too, and it just kind of brings everything full circle. My dad was a pastor, and he was also a guidance counselor. So he would go to work and deal with kids' problems at schools. And he would come and tell us how, he wouldn't, of course, give names or anything like that, but sometimes just to give us a sense of what other people were going through, he might mention a situation that a person was going through. And we'd hear from people all the time coming, your dad is so great. I was having problems. I talked to him, and he was so patient. And I'm like, who is this guy you're talking about? Because he's not that patient with me, And that is, so if I can see that, if I can sense that my dad, who is my hero, and, I love my dad, but he's able to exhibit professionalism and patience with other people, but then I feel like I don't get that same level of patience. Then why would I do that to my own child?
Right.
So I need to exercise a little bit more patience. If I didn't like it as a kid, then why would I then give that to my kids?
Exactly, man. I commend my dad, and when I was growing up, my dad, I didn't really, I respected my dad, definitely. Whatever he said, that's what I did. But like on the inside, it's like, I don't understand my dad. The things he said is over my head. I think he's this type of way. We didn't have a really close relationship growing up. It wasn't until I got into my mid to late 20s, when I gave my life to Christ and I started seeing things a little differently. I started to realize what my dad was doing. I thought my dad, like now I look at him, he's way ahead of his time. He's a creative, so he always, think we did things like this growing up in the house that I thought was weird back then. We would have what he deemed family time. And family time is when you sit at the table all together, no phones, no video games, nothing. It's just the family and we talk. Yep. I thought that was the weirdest. I'm like, what? Talk? And he would always start off the session like, all right, I got 5 siblings. I'm the oldest of the boys. I got one brother, and I have 3 sisters, one sister older than me. And he would make us go around the table to each person and say at least one thing that you admire about the person. And that was the toughest thing to do. Like, no. I was just fighting this person. Like, I don't want. But now I realize what he was doing, and I think that's so. We need more fathers like that. Right. Do you think in today's climate of fathers, back then you had the baby boomers and things like that, but this generation of kids having kids, what's some things? And I know we're doing things now, but like, what's some more things we can do to help these younger guys with not only fathering, but just being a man, just coming into their own as a man? And I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah. I think square one is really understanding the power of the position.
Yeah.
Anybody can become a father. Any man can become a father. It's an easy process. A biological father.
Yeah.
But it's something else to be a father. It's something else to be a dad, to be a real father, to be in that child's life. And that needs to have more emphasis. You brought a child into the world. Congratulations. But do you know what that means? Do you know the commitment that's expected from you? Do you know that means that the good or the bad that this child is faced with or can go on to produce comes from you? You have to set him up. You have to guide him. So there's an awesome responsibility there that I think people take for granted. So I'm a part of a mentoring program here in Charleston called Distinguished Gentlemen's Club.
Okay.
That is something that we do. We mentor young men. Some may come from families with no father in the house. Some may come from families with fathers in the house. It doesn't matter. We're just there to be an added resource to the family. Sometimes they don't have father figures, so we're there to instill some of these things that you see. And I'm jumping off of the question a little bit, but I'll get back to it. We all see role models, whether you are brought up with a male figure in the house or not. You're going to search out somebody that you want to be like, and you're going to emulate them, whether they're doing the right things or the wrong things. What fathers do in the household, when the fathers are at home, that should be your first real role model. That should be, oh, I'm supposed to walk like this, or, oh, he's shaving, or, oh, he kissed my mom. So when I get older, I'm supposed to, or right now, I'm supposed to kiss mom. I'm supposed to take care of the women in my life. He cut the grass. He washed the car. These are things that a man does. He pays the bills on time. So that is going to, fatherhood is going to have to be put on a higher level. Not just, maybe I'm saying it wrong.
No, you're making sense.
Being a sperm donor is one thing. We're going to have to rise above that. Fatherhood and being a sperm donor isn't the same thing. Okay, so we're going to have to raise fatherhood up here. and make it an ideal that we all strive for. So the young men there don't just think of donating their sperm and think, hey, I'm a man, I got a kid. You know, the ideal, the ultimate goal is having a child, a young person that you can pour into and make a better version of yourself.
Wow. I like that. You can pour into and make a better version of yourself. We really need a lot more men to first get that thought, that type of idea, and to really implement it. I got one more question for you. So this question is going to be back to your childhood, kind of, sort of. But like, what's the one thing that you may have liked your dad to do in your life that he didn't do for whatever reason?
One thing I would have liked for my father to do in my life.
Right, that you didn't get, or did you get every single thing that you, would like your dad to do?
I have to think about that because even I told you one thing that I felt like I wish he could have had more patience with me with my problems.
There you go. Yeah.
There are tons of other things I feel he did right, and he's still trying to live up to what he did. He was a pastor and a supervisor in the church, so that took him out of the home a lot, but he still made time for us. And one of the favorite things that we would do is play basketball together.
Wow.
Every Friday, I would practice every day after school
To beat your dad?
to beat my dad. And every Friday we'd play basketball because nobody had anything to do. So come home and we play. It was a big thing. And he would beat me. He would beat me. I feel like he would let me get to the point where
You think you?
I'm about to win, and then he beat me. And it would hurt me so much. I hate to lose. I'm competitive. And I appreciate that. Now, some people might say, well, he should have let you win sometimes. But I didn't want him to let me win.
Right.
I wanted to beat him.
You want to beat him.
And so when the time finally came that, I was getting better because if he had let me beat him, then I wouldn't have worked as hard as I did to actually beat him. So when the time came and my game got better and the day came that I actually beat him, oh God, I was the top of the world.
And he knew it that you beat him.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So then, from that point on, we still played, and at some point when I started getting to the point where I could dunk, it was game over, So, but then I was comfortable in inviting other people over, and other guys my age would join in the fun. And, my dad was able to interact with us all, so it was a wholesome kind of thing. And it provided so many lessons for me in being a good sport, losing well, winning well. It's okay, we talk trash, but at the end of the day, you talk trash to a degree. You don't talk trash to dehumanize a person, to humiliate a person. If it's all in fun, I'm better than you, I'm gonna get you, if we can do that together and at the end, you can say, hey man, good game.
Yeah.
Then it's all good. But at the end of the game, you want to fight. that you missed the point. That's not what it's supposed to be about.
Well, see, that's what I mean when I say I can tell children, for the most part, that has a father figure or some type of role model in their lives. Everything you just said signifies or points to, hey, this guy is well-rounded, well-balanced. He can lose well. He can win. He can talk trash, not to humiliate you. But I think those principles are so, it's a psychological type thing.
Right.
But I think your dad is very admirable for, especially you say he's a pastor. Amy pastor?
No, he's a Church of God in Christ, Kojic pastor.
What? Because the reason I said that is because a lot of more the Pentecostal type side, Kojic, ain't no time, for the kids. But I mean, your dad really made that time to spend time with you guys as a family, and that's what fathering is all about.
And we took trips. Looking back on it, we laugh at some of the trips that we took. I remember, things that we did. We didn't have huge SUVs back then. So my dad had a Nissan pickup truck.
Okay.
With two little seats in the back, the
Yeah.
king cab, so to speak.
Yeah.
And he put a camper on the back of the truck. And we rode all the way to Washington, D.C. from Augusta, Georgia.
In that back?
In the back. And we had a cooler full of Capri Suns and snacks, along with the luggage that was back there. And it was hot, but it was fun.
We're going to D.C.
And we didn't think anything about it. Nowadays, you probably couldn't do that. Someone would call DSS and say this is, inhumane or whatever. But the point of the story was they took us these places the best way they could. They provided for us the best way they could.
Right.
We could have maybe done other things, but they thought it was important for us to see the seat of the country's government, our nation's capital, to go to Frederick Douglass's home, to take trips and do things like that. And we thought that was cool and everything, but also we thought it was cool that we could go to an indoor swimming pool in the hotel.
That was the biggest thing when we took family trips too, man. Going to the pool. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
no.
It's because when I was growing up too, one thing I really love about my parents is every summer we took a trip, a family vacation. They got us out of Charleston. They showed us more of, what is, hey, let's enjoy ourselves as a family. Right. And that's one thing that, I took from my parents to this day. We have to have a vacation, at least one, and for at least a week,
And in that same vein, even here in Charleston, this whole place for our family, I say it in my bio, living here has been more like a vacation, because there's so much to see and so much to do. And I think we take it for granted sometimes. Yeah. So what my family will do, we do go on vacations like my parents did, but there's so much to see here. Sometimes we just stay here and go out and do things. When the kids were very young, and we didn't have any money, we were kind of in between a spot where, look, everybody wants to get out of the house. Payday is here, and we got to make this last. So we went to the dollar store. We got some bubbles, got a little frisbee, and went out to Wadmalaw. And there's like a boat landing little park. There's nothing there but some trees and some open field.
Yeah.
We pulled up, let the kids run and play, blew bubbles, threw balls around, threw the frisbee, and they had a ball.
Wow.
They had a blast. And we went to a place that we don't always see, and there are tons of those little hidden gems around here where the most important thing isn't how much money you spend. It's not how much food you eat. It's about the quality of time you spend together. And that's what we were able to do. So some people see our Instagram feed and our Facebook and say, you guys are always out doing something. Yeah, we
out here.
Yeah. And it doesn't cost a lot, but people don't always see that.
I want to highlight that point. It's not about the money that you have, because I know a lot of guys too, they think, well, I don't have the money, so we're not going to do anything. It's not about the money that you have. It's about the quality time, the time that you can spend and do little things. You don't have to, little can become big, especially when you have children involved, even your spouse. It's the little things that really, really grab onto people.
Right.
So I think we're going to wrap this one up right here. So I know y'all know Mr. Raphael as the Live 5 guy. We all know him as Live 5, but I hope y'all got to see him in a different light as a father, a father. And I appreciate the conversation, brother.
Appreciate you.
I know we're going to have some more.
Yeah.
You said a few things, and so my brain is kind of like ticking. I didn't know you was a PK, but
man.
That's a whole nother conversation itself. But look, this was episode 6. Fatherhood. We need real men in the world. We need to deal with this thing of fatherlessness, by maybe starting to talk about it, and so I hope y'all enjoyed this episode.